You'll recall that Gligorić was considered to be the greatest Yugoslavian chess player ever. Serbian nowadays. He's from what's now known as the Republic of Serbia. Back in those days, there were something like 8 republics that were under the control of Yugoslavia. He being Gligorić, had a dozen Yugoslavian chess championships under his belt. That's right, 12-time Yugoslavian chess champion. He was born February 2nd, 1923 in Belgrade. He passed away in that town over 89 years later, August 14th, 2012. His life was definitely an influence to the development of chess in his country. Svetozar Gligorić was a regular participant in the World Championship cycle between 48 and 73. He participated in every interzonal between 48 and 73, with the exception of the 55 interzonal in Göteborg. There are several openings that bear his name, and he was a very amicable player who formed lifelong friendships with many of the world's elite, including Bobby Fischer. His record against world champions included 24 victories, 2 against Hervé, 2 against Botvinnik, 6 against Smyslov, 2 against Tal. 8 times he defeated Petrosian, and 4 times he beat Bobby Fischer. That's pretty significant when you consider Fischer only had 80-some losses in his entire career. That includes losses in simul's, by the way. How'd you like to say, I only lost 80 games in my entire life? Well, I mean, you do have to consider the fact that he only played for 30 years, or 20 years. Let's see, when did he come into his own? Roughly 20 years, less than 20 years, really. All right, Gligorić with pawn e4, and we're going to get a Sicilian defense? No. Surprisingly, Bobby with e5. So he has surprised us a bit in this tournament, not only because he's been playing poorly, but his opening choices have not been his customary go-to choices. Knight f3 here, knight c6, bishop b5, the Ruy Lopez opening, and Bobby with the classical defense, bishop c5. Pawn c3 is the central variation, knight f6, now pawn d4, and pawn takes pawn. You'll find the central variation of the Ruy Lopez opening in volume C, section 64 of your Encyclopedia of Chess Openings. Here e5 is played, and knight to e4, marked with an inaccuracy, although it is the most commonly played move. The bot's preferred way to escape from this attack is knight to d5. Bobby with the more commonly played knight e4. Gligorić castles, pawn d5. Knight takes the d-man here. And Bobby castles. You could also develop your last minor if you so desire. By the way, Bobby, however, getting out of this bishop's line of fire, plays castles. f3 hits the knight and kicks him out. The bot calling for knight takes knight, which of course will be answered by pawn takes knight. And after bishop takes the pawn, we're not going to run away to b8. We probably could, but it's not the best. We're going to counterattack instead. And we get these Horvitz bishops aiming up here, along with our knight. Coming back, f3 was played, ejecting the knight, which returns to the g5 square. Now bishop takes the knight, pawn takes the bishop, and here bishop e3, putting an obstacle on the a7 g1 diagonal. Now pawn f6 is played, and king gets off of that diagonal and out of the bishop's menacing line of fire. So he played bishop takes the knight, getting marked as inaccurate. Now don't take that pawn with the pawn, because this pawn is en prise. You'd have to play queen d6 to defend your bishop, and after bishop takes, then queen takes. But there's a nifty little move here, ladles and jelly spoons. You can play, note the piece relationship right here, the diagonal wing, and the knight ready to fork those two squares. So therefore you can play queen takes the pawn, even though queen can take queen. Why? Double exclaim! Why? Because after queen takes queen, there is the aforementioned fork. Checosaurus Rex, he's got to get out of check, and then we regain our material with interest. Coming back, so bishop takes d4 was played, and bishop takes the bishop. Now pawn takes the pawn, and bishop takes the pawn. Bishop a6, hitting the rook. Rook b8 being called for right here. Rook e1, knight e6, knight a3. He's coming to this square. You could play queen a4, I think, hitting the bishop. I get a check mark for that move. And after bishop b5, bring your queen over on this line. Doesn't like bishop b5. Now, you could also probably play queen d2, followed by queen f2. I get a thumbs up for that idea. Knight a3 was played. Queen d7. Knight c5 is interesting. Aiming for knight d3. Right? Coming back, queen d7 was played. Now knight c2. Queen's rook to e8. Marked as a mistake. Well, Gligorić being favored by the eval bar as well. 1.2. It's calling for knight c5. I'd much rather play pawn c5. I get a thumbs up. The bot wanting knight c5. But I don't see a real difference in the eval bar between those two moves. But apparently not rook a e8. And the eval bar plunges in this instance. So b4 is played, and that gets the red X. Knight b4 is really going to be the better move. It hits the bishop. And here's c5, queen d2. Pawn c6, bishop g3, inaccurate apparently. C takes b4, draw offered, draw accepted on move 20. Yikes. Kind of a lame game. I mean, their numbers are going to be fine. 94.5 for Svetozar and 94.4 for Bobby. Both players 2850 single game rating.